One day I got this call from this lady named Levon. I didn't know who she was, but I started talking to her. Levon's from North Dakota. She has no family, no church. She's very much alone, but she loves the Lord. And I was trying to figure out why are you calling me? What do you need? And she just said, I just need to pray with someone about some things. She shared how she was estranged from her kids, but she really wanted to get home to them. Home was in Wyoming or Montana. But she had no money, no job. And she really wanted to start patching up a relationship with them. So she said, Chris, will you pray with me for them? So I said, sure. So I prayed for her on the phone, just pray that God would provide, He would lead her. And then we hung up. And as the days went on, I really feel like the Lord said, give her $200. And I was like, I don't even know her. Like, let me at least talk to my wife about this. So I talked to Colette about it, and she just said, you need to obey. Do what you think is right, And then it was sort of, I got busy, and just the idea of giving $200, which to me was a lot of money, to some stranger, I just didn't do it. And flat out just didn't do it. I'll come back to that story. In the book of Jeremiah, God says to Israel, this is Jeremiah 2:2. He says, I remember the devotion of your youth, how as a bride you loved me, and followed me through the desert, through a land not sown. I'll read it again. I remember the devotion of your youth, how as a bride you loved me, and followed me through the desert, through a land not sown. I think this passage is very fitting today, because we're talking about devotion. We're talking about love. What kind of love? The love of a bride, right? Israel. God calls Israel my bride. Israel's not calling herself God's bride. God's calling Israel my bride, just as He's calling you His bride. And because Israel is God's bride, what does Israel do? Well, this verse says that Israel followed God through the desert, through a land not sown. I think it's a very interesting language. Desert, land not sown. What that means is the reason, the purpose in the land had not shown itself. Israel didn't understand why they were traveling through the desert. They couldn't see the fruit in front of them. They didn't know what the result would be. It was not sown. There was no harvest. There was no reason. There was no purpose. There was no meaning in the land. So why follow God? Because that's what a bride does. Because that's what it means to follow God. Israel trusted God so much because Israel responded to God as a bride would respond to her groom. And even though there was no purpose in the land and Israel didn't know why they were there, God led them. And the bride trusted God. You see, this desert, this land not sown, isn't just a physical place. I think it's a season. I think it's a moment. And I think that some of you in this room are in that place of, what's the purpose of this, God? It's not just a place, it's a season. And what the Lord is saying, trust me, follow me. If you love me, you'll trust me. And if you trust me, you'll follow me. Because that's what we do in a loving relationship. To love means to trust.